Imagine you are a small, hairy creature crouched in the tall grass 2 million years ago, chewing on a piece of raw zebra meat for the 40th minute straight. Your jaw is aching, your stomach is doing all the hard work, and you still have not gotten enough calories to think straight. Then, one day, lightning strikes a dry bush nearby, and for the first time, you do something that will change the entire future of your species. You hold a piece of meat over the flame. You are not just cooking dinner, you are about to rewire your own brain. Today, we are talking about one of the wildest ideas in all of human evolution. The idea that cooking food did not just fill our stomachs, it built our minds. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you will never look at a campfire or a stove the same way again. Let's rewind the clock about 2.5 million years. Back then, our ancestors were small-brained creatures called Australopithecines, and honestly, life was rough. Their brains were about the size of a chimpanzee's brain, roughly 400 cubic centimeters. Their days were spent doing one exhausting task, chewing. Scientists estimate our ancestors spent up to 6 hours a day just chewing raw plants and tough meat. That is basically a full-time job, and it is exhausting just imagining it. Raw food is tough, it is fibrous, and your body has to burn a huge amount of energy just breaking it down. Here is the catch. The brain is an incredibly expensive organ to run. Even though your brain is only about 2% of your total body weight, it burns roughly 20% of your daily energy. So if most of your energy is being spent on digesting raw, tough food, there is barely anything left over to grow a bigger, smarter brain. This is where a brilliant scientist named Richard Wrangham enters the story. He is a primatologist from Harvard University. And in the early 2000s, he proposed something called the cooking hypothesis. His idea was simple, but honestly kind of revolutionary. He argued that cooking food, not just eating meat, was the real turning point that allowed the human brain to explode in size. Here is the science behind it, and trust me, it is fascinating. When you cook food, heat breaks down the tough proteins, fibers, and starches before your stomach even has to try. Basically, cooking is like pre-chewing your food using fire instead of your teeth. Studies show that cooked food can give your body up to almost double the usable calories compared to the same food eaten raw. In one well-known experiment, researchers fed mice diets of either raw meat or cooked meat with the exact same number of calories on paper. The mice eating cooked meat gained more weight and had more usable energy, proving that cooking itself, not just the type of food, unlocks extra nutrition. So imagine you are that early human again, except now you have discovered fire. Suddenly, instead of chewing for 6 hours a day, you are done eating in under 1 hour. That is 5 extra hours a day of free energy and free time. Multiply that by thousands of generations, and you get a species that can afford to grow something incredibly expensive, a much bigger brain. This is sometimes called the expensive tissue hypothesis, proposed by researchers Leslie Aiello and Peter Wheeler back in 1995. Their idea connects perfectly with cooking, since a smaller, easier to digest diet meant our guts could actually shrink over time. Think of it like your body's energy budget. You only have so much money, and if you spend less on rent, meaning digestion, you can spend more on entertainment, meaning brain power. Fast forward through evolution, and the numbers are honestly wild. Homo erectus, who lived around 1.8 million years ago, had a brain about 60% bigger than Australopithecus. And guess what? Evidence shows up around the exact same time in the fossil record. Right alongside this brain growth, burnt bones, ash deposits, and charred plant remains at sites like Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, dating back around 1 million years. That is not a coincidence. That is a partnership between fire and the human mind growing together. But here is where the story gets even more interesting, because cooking did not just change our biology. It changed our entire social world. Think about it, cooking requires a fire, and fire requires people to gather around it. For the first time in our evolutionary history, families and groups had a reason to sit together, share food, and just talk. Anthropologists believe this simple act, sharing a cooked meal, may have been one of the earliest building blocks of human culture, language, and even storytelling. Imagine the very first bedtime story or the very first joke ever told, likely happening right there, around a fire, on a full stomach. Cooking gave us free time, and free time, combined with full bellies and safety from the dark, gave us the space to think, bond and dream. Now, some scientists push back a little on parts of this idea, and good science always welcomes a healthy debate. Some researchers argue that solid proof of controlled fire use goes back only around 1 million years. While brain growth started even earlier, this means cooking was likely not the only factor. And things like eating more meat, tool use, and better hunting strategies probably helped too. But most researchers agree on one big point, that consistent cooking was absolutely a major turning point that accelerated everything. It was not the only ingredient in the recipe of human evolution, but it might have been the secret sauce. The flame under your pot today is the great-great-great-grandchild of that very first fire, your ancestors. Huddled around in fear and wonder, and here is the truly mind-bending part to sit with. Fire did not just help humans survive, it fundamentally changed what a human even is. Our smaller jaws, our smaller guts, our unusually large and hungry brains. They are all essentially living proof that we are, in some strange way, a species shaped by cooking. We like to think of ourselves as the thinking animal, but maybe it is more accurate to say we are the cooking animal, and thinking came as a bonus. So the next time you strike a match, turn on a stove, or watch a candle flicker, take a second to really see it. That tiny flame is not just light and heat. It is the ancient spark that turned a struggling ape into a storyteller, a scientist, a dreamer, and everything else we have become. If this blew your mind even a little, hit that like button, because trust me, your brain, quite literally, will thank you for it.